Hello, everyone. My sermon for this week, my online sermon for this week, will be coming from John chapter 9, verses 1 through 3, out of the New King James Version of the Bible. Now, as Jesus passed by, he saw a man who was blind from birth, and his disciples asked him, saying, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but that the works of God should be revealed in him. The title of the sermon this week is actually an old capstone project from my days in seminary. The dangers of the modern church. The dangers of the modern church. This inspiration for this sermon came out of a disdain I had with LED lights in my own church and in other churches that I saw online. According to Britannica.com, LED in electronics, a semiconductor device that emits infrared and visible light when charged with an electric current. LED displays began to be used for consumer electric devices starting in 1968, when Hewlett-Packard or HP introduced the first LED display. Visible LED lights are used in many electronic devices as indicator lamps, car brake lights, and as alphanumeric displays, or even full-color posters on billboards and signs. My heart was torn because of other disabled individuals like me who cannot enter a church because of the building causing harm to them. For those who don't know, I was born a premature baby and I developed hydrocephalus. And I was born with hydrocephalus, Yet I realized how God was able to work in my life despite my challenges. I was able to learn the drums as a little kid, play the piano, and other instruments. I maintained good grades growing up and eventually became a music major at Morehouse College. Growing up in church, my parents and my extended family members made sure I always had a pair of earplugs on me. When I became an adult and began to process my disabilities and how they affected my life, I began to realize that the church isn't built around those with disabilities. I feel called to address these issues and to preach healing texts, as we refer to in seminary, like John 9, in a more inclusive way towards disabled people. I believe that there are 3 ways to make sure that the church can become less dangerous towards disabled persons. Point number 1, we should acknowledge our blind spots. What blind spots? What does healing have to do with a blind spot? I will define 2 definitions of a blind spot according to Cambridge Dictionary. One definition of a blind spot is an area that you're not able to see, especially the part of a road you cannot see when you're driving behind and slightly to one side of the car. I'm from the Atlanta area, and driving in Atlanta you may be familiar with checking your blind spots. Another definition of a blind spot is a subject that you find very difficult to understand at all, sometimes because you're not willing to try. According to the website, I wanted to explain something from a website of mine. I wanted to explain something from a certain website, According to absolutely.com, 3% of epilepsy are exposed to having flashing lights at certain intensities, or certain visual patterns can trigger seizures. This condition is known to photosensitive epilepsy. If I were in a church building, I would try to get people to look at a certain LED display or any sensation of light to sort of get the physical feel about what I experience. I believe that the church must be willing to confront our blind spots when it comes to talking about disabilities, not just for me, but for those who come into the church and others that you meet outside of churches. The second point, I believe, is that we should expand of what our definitions of a disability is. There are more definitions of disability than just blindness, like the story in the New Testament. A disability is not just the blue reserved icon out in the church parking lot. In fact, there are visible and invisible disabilities. According to another source for this sermon, invisibledisabilities.org, an invisible disability is a physical, mental, or neurological condition that is not visible from the outside, yet can limit or challenge a person's movement, senses, or activities. Unfortunately, the very fact that these symptoms are invisible can lead to misunderstandings, false perceptions, and misjudgments. And judgments, excuse me. I think the last point, the most important point, is that we have to treat people the way you want to be treated. If you have time, I would encourage you to read the rest of John 9. After Jesus heals the man, the religious elite question the legitimacy of his healing. They question him, his parents, to the point that the man gets sick of it. He wants to be treated with respect. Speaking from experience, demanding respect and claiming autonomy is hard as a disabled person. Whether you meet someone with a visible disability or an invisible disability, you should treat them with respect. This may be overwhelming and new. If you've never met a disabled person before, just think about me. If you have kids, make sure that your children don't joke about disabled children or use discriminatory language when referring to disability sermons. Just because a person with a disability just because a person has a disability doesn't mean they need to be healed. There are plenty of people with disabilities who have great quality of life. As Christians, we must stop using our hermeneutic or our application of the text of John 9 and other healing texts to try to fix people. My goal of this sermon is that churches as religious spaces can comply with the American Disabilities Act of 1990, and that the Black church, which I'm a part of, can learn to accommodate those with invisible and disabilities. I thank you for engaging in a topic that I feel very passionate about and very close to. I hope that this inspires you to learn more about disabilities and what it means to embrace those with disabled persons. Thank you.